Good evening, everyone. My name is Diane Donaher. I'm the managing director here at Civic Theater, and it's truly my honor to welcome you tonight to Civic Theater. The theme of unmasking domestic and intimate partner abuse does have a bit of a theater in it, but in all ways, we want you to know, each of you, that our staff and our board of directors here at Civic Theater stands with each of you as we remember lives lost, we honor survivors, and we give hope to the future. We wish you all peace and healing, and thank you for allowing us to be part of this beautiful journey. And now we turn it over to Lori Swinsky.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Diane. We really appreciate the hospitality of Diane and everyone from the Civic Theater. This is a wonderful venue, and we feel blessed to be here back in person tonight. Before we really get going, I do want to start by thanking everyone for joining us and coming out in support of survivors. We honestly didn't know what to expect tonight. It's been that kind of year, so this really does our heart good. Tonight wouldn't be possible without our presenting sponsor, so I'd like to recognize Ocean Spray Cranberries and our additional event sponsors who contributed their times and talents tonight, including George Wacker and Lehigh Valley With Love, who was live streaming this event, Clean Slate, who's helped to contribute and has a table set up here, and our valued Turning Point mentor and volunteer, Megan Baker, who you can thank for all of the snacks tonight. I also want to thank the elected officials who took the time to join us here tonight. We know it's busy and they need to be getting important stuff done in Harrisburg. So thank you to Representatives Mike Schlossberg or in his district, Representative Pete Schweier. We have Bill Royer from Representative Ryan McKenzie's office with us tonight, and Kim Silvestri, the Victim Witness Coordinator with DA Jim Martin here in Lehigh County. So thank you all for coming. As a nonprofit proudly working towards our mission in the Lehigh Valley for more than 40 years, we rely on the volunteer board members to ensure we are sustainable and focused on our mission for generations to come. Tonight, I'm also really pleased we have so many board members who came out with us. So I do want to recognize we have our president, Sheila Ketterer. You guys can stand up or give a wave, that would be great. So now I can see the important work you do. So Sheila. We have Pete Nickisher, Camelia Baker, Cheryl Arndt, Jen Moore, Heather Smith Walbridge, and last but not least, Lauren Weiser. There are many outside factors that lead to the environment where a pandemic of abuse can exist. There are no quick fixes. Domestic and intimate partner abuse is what a lot in this kind of work will call a complex problem. They don't have simple answers, but what they do require is a commitment of people from various parts of our community working together with a shared vision. The staff and the volunteers at Turning Point know that we alone cannot end domestic and intimate partner abuse. We rely on those allies in the Lehigh Valley who also share the vision that our homes should be safe and we can all expect to have respectful, loving relationships. That's why it's special that we have so many of those valued partners with us tonight. I'd like to acknowledge we have with us the Baum School of Art, Bradbury Sullivan LGBT Community Center, Lafayette College, the Southside Arts District, the West End Alliance, and the YWCA, whose Allentown and Bethlehem chapters partner tonight to share with us the following message. If we can play that, please.
Every year, during the third week of October, YWCAs across the country unite with YWCA USA to call for an end to gender-based violence. The YWCA's Week Without Violence campaign blends education and awareness, advocacy and activism to empower survivors and to seek out solutions to end all forms of gender-based violence. During the Week Without Violence campaign, we listened to and learned from survivors. We pressed local, state, and national leaders to fund and expand critical services. We advocate for policies and strategies that will prevent violence against women, while acknowledging the difficult work that remains.
In dozens of large cities and small towns across America, YWCAs provide direct domestic violence services to thousands of women each year. Here in the Lehigh Valley, Turning Point meets these needs with counseling, shelter, legal advocacy, a 24/7 helpline, and community outreach. We are proud to work with Turning Point to provide supportive services to survivors through YWCA's economic empowerment programming, including the Perfect Fit for Working Women, digital skills training, and professional development workshops. Collaboratively, we ensure that every woman making a fresh start has the clothing, skills, and support she needs to reach her goals of personal and financial stability. Which is why we stand with Turning Point during the Week Without Violence and throughout the month of October. All survivors have the right to be seen, heard, and believed. And Turning Point works 365 days a year to help survivors understand their options and to navigate a safe path toward a life free of abuse. Homes should be safe places, but the pandemic, lockdowns, and job losses trapped many victims with their abusers, with the stress escalating the abuse. We saw this firsthand as many of the women we serve at the YWCA reached out to us for support and resources. We turned to Turning Point, which for the past 20 months has continued to assist survivors and deliver their services as safely as possible.
It is imperative that we, as a community, come together to remember the lives that have been lost this year due to domestic and intimate partner abuse. We must empower survivors and acknowledge all that they have endured while we continue to promote change to build a more equitable society. We are proud to support the work of Turning Point of the Lehigh Valley, who share our vision of a just and equitable world as they work through an empowerment and trauma-informed lens and support racial justice and advocacy. To continue this work together, please join us tomorrow for a panel discussion on how we can reimagine the role of resilience and build thriving futures for survivors by centering healing and addressing domestic and systemic violence, as well as the root causes of trauma which feed within a cycle of harm. To register or learn more about YWCA's annual Week Without Violence, please visit ywcaweekwithoutviolence.org. That's ywcaweekwithoutviolence.org.
And I know we are blessed to have Sarah and Jen with us tonight, so just give a hand for all the important work they do there. And again, there's so many people to thank tonight because we haven't been out in a while, right? Like, I mean, here's a chance, and this is just lovely to be able to be with everyone. I do want to recognize the immense work that our Vigil Committee puts into putting together an event like this evening. They made this possible, so if those who helped with the Vigil, if you could stand and we could just recognize you for a second. Who are you? We have the shy people here. And I think many of you met on your way in the number of staff members and volunteers who are here with us. If they're available, if they could stand, because I do want you to see who they are. We know that this can be a tough program. So I also want to make sure you see who they are. We are here for you. If you need to talk at any point during the evening, feel free to go up, just tap us on the shoulder, wave us down, and we would be happy to go to a private, quiet place to speak with you if you feel like you would like to talk with one of our advocates. So thank you. And lastly, I want to just really recognize the immense efforts of Leah Triber and Andrea Search, our advancement team at Turning Point. They went above and beyond in preparing both the in-person and virtual options for tonight so that we could ensure that we wouldn't miss the opportunity to honor the strength of survivors and ensure that we remember those who can't join us tonight because they lost their lives due to abuse. It's an incredibly important event for our community, and I'm blessed to work with our team who was able to pull this together. So with that, I'd like to introduce our Director of Advancement, Andrea Search.
Good evening. I have to say, Leah, wherever Leah is. Leah really was the backbone behind putting this together. I have put this together for many years, and I'm kind of passing the baton, and she did a phenomenal job putting this together, so definitely kudos to Leah. This evening, you will hear many stories from survivors, whether it's through talking, spoken word, through singing, and the messaging has a common theme. You never know what someone's going through. Our theme of unmasking domestic and intimate partner abuse, it's just that. We're unmasking some things you may not have known. Before I met our featured speakers up here, just by meeting them and speaking with them over the phone and meeting them in person, and then hearing their story and unpacking just a sliver. I mean, they have not even begun to unpack decades of what they've gone through with me, and just sharing those moments in time with me. And Beth is going to come up and share just a few minutes and let you into a part of her life that is just very personal, very raw, and very real. And I just want you to know that we don't know what's going on with everyone. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes in their lives. We might put on a happy face when we go to work, but we might be hurting inside. We might be angry sometimes, but it's because we might be hurting. So we all have a different mask that we put on, and Beth is going to kind of take off that mask of, you know, those beautiful shining eyes that she has right now. She's going to kind of let you into her soul and share a little bit about her story, and I'm going to let her speak and share a few moments with you.
So I can see. Good evening. Unmasking domestic violence. Together, we can reveal the true nature of this horrific silent killer in our communities. Let me ask you, have you ever had the question play in your head, what if? What if two words, when said alone, normal, everyday words? Put the two words, what if, together, and the impact can change a life. For the next 10 minutes, I would like to invite you to clear your mind and walk in my shoes as I take you back into my past. It was 25 years ago this past June. It was a Sunday summer night, and I was to pick my 2.5-year-old son up in Philadelphia at 4 p.m. As the day went on, his father pushed the pickup time back several hours. Around 10:30 on that summer night, my son and his father finally arrived at the house. I gave my son a big hug and kiss and asked him how his weekend was with his daddy. Pickups were never easy. It was often a few hours of being verbally abused and threatened. Just a few weeks prior to that, my son's father pulled a gun out and threatened to kill both my son and I. I pleaded for our lives for hours. He finally let us go home that night in May, but made it very clear that if I told anyone or called 911, he would kill us. June 23rd, my mom sent my sister with me to pick my son up that night. Pick up that night was the norm. He began to argue, as it always happened, began to escalate, and I called 911. As the Lower Merion police cars came around the corner, Kirk Harris took our son off the porch and shut the door. In minutes, the lights went on in the front bedroom and then off. 2 shots were fired, and my life was never to be the same. On June 23rd, 1996, my 2.5-year-old son, Tavon, was murdered. Tavon was innocent, beautiful, and full of life with a smile that would light up a room. Tavon was murdered by his father before he turned the gun on himself. Covered my son's head with a pillow and shot him once through the right side of his head. Turned the gun on himself, and both died instantly. So, I was left standing in the middle of the road with my PFA in hand and the Lower Marion Police Department on my side. PFA, protection from abuse. A piece of paper granted to a victim of abuse, unfortunately not bulletproof. I applied for my PFA after several years of being isolated from family and friends. I was beaten, choked, kicked, stomped on, punched, given multiple black eyes, bruised arms, legs, broken ribs, and the list goes on. I finally had the courage to leave in March of 1996. This was my second time leaving the home. The first time several months earlier in August, the cops were called when I showed up to work with fingerprints on my neck and blood seeping through my shirt. He was arrested in August 1995, and the court date wasn't set until May 1st, 1996. So that's where we ask, what if? What if I would have kept Tavon home that weekend? What if I had gone in the house after them? What if my sister Denise wasn't with me? What if I didn't call 911? What if I would have stayed? What if it didn't take 9 months to hear his case? What if the judge would have listened when I told him of the threats to kill us if I ever called 911 during the hearing on May 1st? What if he would have been arrested on May 1st for the violation of his PFA for the threats? What if the pastor of his church would have listened to me when I shared his threats, instead of laughing at me and saying, "He comes from a good family, Beth, he would never harm you"? What if the passerby on the city street that one night would have stepped in and stopped him from choking me while pinned up against the wall? What if the neighbor would have called 911 when she heard me being beaten week after week for almost 2 years? What if the grocery clerk would have asked me if I was okay after seeing me week to week with black eyes? What if family and friends maybe would have pushed a bit harder and asked why I wasn't coming around? What if? So it was a long, hard road to walk after this happened. Tragedy of losing my son, trying to pick myself up after years of abuse. The guilt of calling 911. The guilt of living. It should have been me, not my son. I was the one he was abusing, the one he hated, not my son. A letter was found in the house that night. "I hope you live with this till the day you die, bitch." This letter haunted me for years. This was his way of making the abuse last a lifetime. I honestly didn't know how I would ever live again, smile again, trust anyone ever again. But somehow I found the strength to get up every day and put a smile on for the outside world. My family and friends certainly took the brunt of my issues. The anger, the tears, the leftover remnants of being physically, emotionally, and verbally abused. They never left my side, never judged me, and supported me through it all. And for that I am forever grateful. About 15 years ago, I found peace in my heart and forgiveness for what his father did to my son, myself, and himself. I also had to forgive myself. Today, my heart is full of love, not hate. My smile is genuine, not fake, and I'm no longer a victim, I'm a survivor. Now back to the words, what if? They can't bring my son back or change my past, but they can certainly change someone else's life. What if my story touches one person tonight? What if one person opens the dialogue when they see a black eye or a bruise and the victim opens up and asks for help? What if one person reaches out to the friend that's isolating themselves? What if we stop judging the victim and blaming them for staying? What if we hold the abusers accountable for their actions? And what if we make a pact tonight to speak up and finally break the silence? What if one life is saved because you shared my story? And what if we unmask domestic violence, one what if at a time? Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to put your heart out there. When I first read your story, I told you I fought back the tears in my office. I had to close my door and regain my composure before I could open my door back again. I can't imagine the unbearable pain that you went through, and thank you for being brave and sharing your story. You are a survivor, and you undoubtedly will change someone in this room and somebody watching this as well. Unmasking, there's so many things that we can unmask from Beth's story, from the tactics of an abuser to unmasking the need for our legal system and some changes, the unmasking of community and how we can help as bystanders and neighbors and friends and loved ones. It also unmasks how resiliency and hope and inspiration can come out of such a tragic story, and how you can sit up here today and be that inspiration and hope for someone else. So I thank you for sharing. We are blessed to have you here. Our next featured speaker is Miss Nnemdia. Nnemdia is another amazing person who has a story that will unmask several things, and sometimes people think they are alone going through situations. Survivors think they're the only ones going through something. Nobody else will understand them. In Nnemdia's situation, there's a lot of common threads through what survivors go through in life. And if there's survivors in this room, or you know survivors, I'm sure some of what Nnemdia has to say, along with what Beth had to say, you can hear some of that through their stories. So I will let Nnemdia come up and share. And I want you to listen to see if you can unmask anything when Nnemdia is telling her story.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us, Beth. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nnemdia, and so currently I'm watching a show called The Maid. I don't know if anyone else has heard about it on Netflix. It's about a young lady named Alex who one night her and her boyfriend got into it, and he decided to punch a hole in the wall a couple of inches from her head, maybe about an inch from her head. He also threw a glass at that wall. Later that night, she found herself picking out shards of glasses from her daughter, her 4-year-old daughter's hair. She had the guts to leave that night. She had $17 in her pocket, and she drove off to get help. The next morning, she met with a social worker, and the social worker told her that if she was a domestic violence survivor or if she was fleeing domestic violence, that she would be able to help her with emergency shelter. So Alex says, no, I would never do that. I would never take a bed from someone who is really abused. And she said, the social worker said, well, what's real abused? And Alex proceeded to say, someone who is in fear of their lives, maybe beaten up, bloody, really needs somewhere to stay right now. The social worker agreed, but she also asked Alex, so then what's fake abuse? Alex didn't have a response. And the social worker said, could it be control? Could it be financial abuse? Could it be someone who punches a hole an inch away from your head or throws a glass at you? And the reason this resonated with me so much is because for years, I didn't know that I was in an abusive relationship. I grew up very tough. We had fights, and in my mind, this was normal, and it was okay. I also had an ignorant vision of what a woman who was abused looked like. I always imagined maybe she had on sunglasses to protect her image if she had a black eye. I often thought this person wouldn't be a person who would fight back, or maybe they would be feeble or unstable in some way. That was due to ignorance. As I mentioned, I was a fighter. So in any situation with this individual, I fought back. I grew up in a very tough neighborhood, and fighting was how you showed how tough you were. I had 3 male cousins. I was the only girl. Fighting was all that I did. And I also felt that if I wanted to leave this relationship at any point, that I could, and nothing would hold me back. According to the world, I wasn't unstable because I had a husband, I had the children, I had the house, the car, and all these things. I could make and continue to make those excuses to myself because I never had a black eye to prove otherwise. One day I was sitting on the steps talking to my neighbor, and he decided it was time for me to come in the house. I refused, so he came downstairs. I was 5 months pregnant with my 3rd child, and he decided to grab me off of the steps and snatch me into the hallway. I'm fighting. He throws me to the floor, and I'm fighting. My neighbor, somehow he locked the door. My neighbor couldn't get in to help me, and she's banging on the door, and she decided to call the cops. All I really remember is him disappearing and the cops coming. The cops asked me, well, what do you want to do? My natural reaction was to protect my abuser. I don't want to do anything, I said. Take me to my mom's, I'll calm down, and in my mind, I was coming back. I relaxed and came back later that night. My neighbor saw me, and she just couldn't believe it. She didn't say anything, but she began to play a song, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with Foolish by Ashanti, but the lyrics were, see, my days are cold without you, yet I'm hurting while I'm with you. Although my heart can't take anymore, I still keep running back to you. So she was basically calling me foolish without saying I was foolish. But it's easy to be on the outside judging because I was on the inside and judging. The next day, I ended up going to the doctor because my baby was shaking in my stomach most of the night. Got a sonogram. She told me that It seemed as if the baby was miscarrying, but if I would rest for a couple of weeks, there's a chance that the baby would live. And then she proceeded to ask me again, and what did you say happened? Again, I did what I do best. I protected my abuser. I said, oh, I just fell. I was dancing around and I fell. And I don't know if she believed what I said. I don't know if I believed what I said. But in that moment, I realized that not only was I fake abused, but I was real abused also. That reality really shook me to the core. I never saw myself as an abused woman. I never saw myself as I previously defined as weak or unstable. It didn't matter that he was the one who was controlling, manipulative, stalkerish, choked me on multiple occasions, punched me in my head, the back, so it was never the front, threatened to pull guns out on me all the time, or that I had grown accustomed to sleeping with a knife underneath my pillow, just in case he came in drunk that night. I was a victim. And once I said it aloud, I actually became a victim of being a victim. I started to abuse myself with negative talk. Your mouth is too big. You're too aggressive. No man wants a woman who talks back. And maybe, just maybe, I'm getting what I deserve. I felt like I needed help, but it always seemed to fall on deaf ears. There was no shock or urgency whenever I would tell anyone. But there was always an array of dismissive comments. Sometimes a man just needs a woman to give him peace. You're strong, you got this. And my favorite one, God will never put more on you than you can bear. I even called the DV hotline once, not Turning Point, just to be clear. They told me that I had to change my name, my location, and cut everyone off. And I said, so this man gets to take my life anyway? I felt like I was being victimized again, and it was no one's fault. I said, my name means God is alive, Nnemdia, that's what it means. And I know right now it doesn't seem like it, but if I do this, that makes this man more powerful than God. And it just didn't sit right with me. But after a while, you start to believe that there's no way out, and you just surrender to your hell. But I refused, because if nothing else, and for everyone that knows me, I grew up in the hood, and if nothing else, they say that I'm not going down like a punk. And I wasn't going down without a fight. And I didn't leave right away. It took me a long time. I left 3 times, and the last time it took me 8 months after I made the decision to actually get out of there. I believe I was there for 13 years altogether. But it's like once I started to believe that I can do it, God just continued to open up the doors for me. I conquered it one day at a time. And on May 1st of 2013, I was no longer fake abused, nor was I real abused, but I became free. I was no longer a victim, but I became a conqueror. I overcame adversity like conquerors do. And when you go to war, the conqueror is the one who overcomes their adversary. And once you win the war, and you look back on the ruins that were left in the wake of your experience, you throw your hands up in the air, and you celebrate. So today, whenever I have moments where I don't feel strong or I start to grow weary in my well-doing, my mama would always say, just read the scripture, it'll help you, read the scripture. So I say this to those who have lost loved ones, to those who are still in the midst of their journey, to those who advocate for the ones with no voice, I leave you with this scripture, Romans 8:37. In all things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, and I'm adding this, neither fake abusers or real abusers, nor anything else in creation will be able to separate us from the love of God. So to all of my conquerors in the building today, continue to do what conquerors do because you've already won the war. So celebrate the win.
You could rewrite the book, sure. And you definitely are a conqueror, absolutely. I love how you ended your speech. You covered every angle for everyone out there who's listening. Unmasking so many different ways in your story. Unmasking how faith is important to people as they're going through their journey. Unmasking how people start to doubt themselves and have guilt and start to talk negatively about themselves. It's a common thing we see among survivors. Unmasking how you can build yourself back up. Unmasking how you can start to live again and become a conqueror. So thank you for that. To share with you, spoken word, we have Robin Gow, and Robin is the supportive services coordinator at Bradbury Sullivan LGBT Center, and they've been involved with LGBTQIA+ advocacy and organizing for 6 years as a genderqueer person and a survivor. So I will let Robin.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm going to share a poem. I'm going to take this off for this. Unmasking. I'm going to share a poem tonight from a collection of letters by trans and non-binary survivors. But before I start, I want to just talk a little bit on the theme of unmasking and thinking about LGBTQ+ survivors. I don't really think I knew I was a survivor until I started learning about domestic and intimate partner abuse when I started working at Turning Point, because I hadn't really ever seen trans people's stories included in stories about domestic and intimate partner abuse. But as I started to learn about it, and if you look at the statistics, about 1 in 3 LGBTQ+ people will be survivors of domestic and intimate partner abuse in their lifetime. And the numbers are even higher for trans people. About 50 to 70% of trans people will be survivors of domestic and intimate partner abuse. And of all demographics, trans people are also the most likely to be victims of homicide by an intimate partner. Looking at these statistics in my work was difficult because I care so deeply about trans people. And we have so much love. Boundless love is what I've found in the trans community. And I decided to share a poem from someone else rather than my own writing because I kind of wanted to share more voices of trans people. So this poem is called To My Body. When my abuser showed up under the People You May Know tab on Facebook, I could feel my heart drop into my stomach like the rock I had turned it into. I looked down to my stomach apologetically as my mind raced laps around itself, and I played it back in my head. It had been over a year since I had blocked him from my life. It had been over a year since I had seen a picture of him. It had been over a year. I can't help myself. My hand moves over the mouse. My fingers push down, click, a new profile picture. The hair he had grown since we started dating is now shaved to his scalp. Nothing for someone to grab onto or pull when he pins them down to the ground. Nothing for someone to use to defend themselves when he is yelling into their face as he slams their head into the floor. Over and over, I can't stop my hands from shaking. Click, he took his lip ring out. Click, he's wearing my hat. Click, I miss that dog. Click, click, click. I look down at my body. I look at all the recovery that has taken place. The bruises, now long gone. The bones, now buried by the weight I could never put on when I was with him. And my body begins to shift. Suddenly, I see my flaws more clearly. My stomach suddenly looks larger. My ribs, buried deep inside, start aching, hiding from the world that used to be a part of the man who bruised them. I hear his voice in my head again. All those years of complaints and criticisms, all those years of avoiding meals, avoiding judging stares, avoiding the concern that others had about me and my body. I look at my closet, at the clothes labeled girl that he hated, at the dresses hanging, at the wigs in their stands, all the things he hated, all the things he said he would leave me for. This body is mine, my identity is mine, not yours. I look back at my stomach and sigh. Where lips once stuck out, I see a layer of fat. My ribs now covered by the stack of books and ripped pages of ink. I look at my legs, at the hair that is slowly growing, shadowed by another tattoo wrapping its branches and roots around me. I used this ink to help me, a tool of recovery, a place, a band-aid over parts of my body that I had once hated. I pull out a pair of jeans that fit maybe just a little too tight. Feel the fabric over my thighs as I close my eyes, smiling as I think about how right it feels. A tank top covers my chest, makeup adorns my face. The mirror looks back at me, beaming, there they are. There I am, content. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. You know, no matter what kind of relationship you're in, we unmask. The tactics that abusers use are the same. Criticism, name calling, the making you feel less than you are, the things that survivors go through, the way we feel. You know, it's, you know, unmasking, especially in the trans community. Not even feeling that you want to talk to somebody but may not have the resource or afraid you're going to be judged because you don't know who's safe to talk to, who can you reach out to. You know, Turning Point, we're inclusive. You can reach out to us, Bradbury Sullivan LGBT Center. We're great partners. You know, we work together. We're here. One thing we do, we don't judge, we listen. One thing that survivors don't need is judgment. They don't need more judgment. They don't need anyone else telling them what to do with their life. They need options. They need people to listen, to say, okay, well, here's some options. Did you think of this? Well, what do you think? And we empower. We give the choice. We give that power back to the survivor. So I want to thank the three of you for sharing today. And I want you guys to know that each in your own different way, your message, your meaning behind it has just been very inspirational. So I thank you. When you came in today, you should have received a candle. If anyone did not receive a candle, can you put your hand in the air and somebody will get you a candle? So if you did not receive a candle, somebody will come make sure you get a candle. As they're passing out the candles, if you did not have the time, as you were walking in, maybe you came in last minute and you were just trying to get to your seat on time, we do have displays in the back, and we have the meanings of what the displays are at the bottom of your program, the empty place at the table. Those displays are table settings from families right here in the Lehigh Valley who have lost a loved one from homicides, from domestic and intimate partner abuse, and they've given us a place setting from their family. And we have many of them. We chose some to share tonight. So those are really special and near and dear to our hearts. So we have those. We also have our clothesline project, which are on either side of the half walls in the back. And every t-shirt has a different meaning. The white ones signify somebody who has lost their life at the hands of an abuser. So if you haven't had a chance, we're not going to take everything down right away, but take a look. And also, if you did not sign in, please sign in. And if anything's weighing heavy on your heart, please know that we are here as a staff to talk to you as well after. And in a moment, Kendal Conrad will come out and she will be performing. As we light our candles, there's a button on the bottom. I want you to think of all the people who have lost their lives this year due to domestic and intimate partner abuse. All the families that will not have their loved one around for the holidays. All of the people that have just been taken too early from us. And as that candle is lit in our moment of silence, I want you to really think of what's behind your mask. What's something that maybe you haven't told someone, or what's something that you've noticed about somebody at your workplace or a friend, and maybe what change you're willing to take as well. So I want you to think of the survivors and also think about maybe some change as well. So we're going to take about 30 seconds for a moment of silence.
I can thank you for how strong I have become. You brought the flames and you put me through hell. I had to learn how to fight for myself. And we both know all the truth I could tell. I'll just say this is I wish you farewell. changing. I hope you find your peace, falling on your knees, praying. I'm proud of you, man. No more monsters, I can breathe again. And you said that I was done. Well, you were wrong, and now the best is yet to go. There's only one way I don't need you, I found the strength I've never known. I'll bring thunder every rain. And when I'm finished, they won't even know your name. You brought the flames and you put me through hell. I had to learn how to find myself. And we both know all the truth I can tell. I'll just say this is I wish you farewell. I hope you're somewhere praying, praying. I hope your soul is changing, changing. I hope you find your peace, falling on your knees, praying. Sometimes I pray for you and I. Someday, maybe I'll see the light. Someday in life, you're gonna get what you give. But some things only God can forget. I hope you're somewhere praying, praying. I hope your soul is changing, changing. I hope you find your peace, falling on your knees, praying.
So as we end tonight's vigil, just want to thank each and every one of you who came tonight to the Civic Theater, for those who are on stage with us tonight who shared, or my fearless leader, who allows me to have a lot of creativity and empowers us all the time as staff to do better and just has our backs and allows us to just make our job fun, but at the same time gives us the tools and the backing we need to continue to help survivors every day, and also to our board of directors who allow us to do the same. Thank you for having the faith in us as a staff to continue to do our jobs to help survivors. Thank you. Thank you to our allies that are here, our community partners. Again, Muhlenberg, AXO, you guys came out in numbers tonight. Thank you. Have to shout you girls out. It's amazing how a community can come together. You know, you see on Facebook as we're streaming live, you know, as you're scrolling through posts and you see those perfect pictures and those perfect couples, what's behind their masks, right? It's not always so perfect. You know, you have family members and coworkers, and not everything's the way it seems. So as you go out there, take what you've heard, as our Beth and Nnemdia had spoken about. Sometimes you don't realize what you're going through at first. And sometimes you might have friends and family and coworkers that don't even realize what they're going through at first. Look out for each other. Look out for your family and your friends, and be there for each other as a community. Thank you. As you exit, our staff will be at the ends of the rows, and then you can drop the candles into the bags. They're not partying gifts. We need them back. Sorry. Unless you'd like to donate new ones.